and then the two of them were galloping out of town, hitting the rutted road that would take Wade to the old log house on the Platte where he had been born. Renegade needed no guiding. He knew well the way home, and Wade was free to dwell on what he was going to do tonight. Before the August evening was over, he was going to propose marriage to the most beautiful girl in all of Wyoming territory. He was finally relinquishing his bachelorhood and all that went with it. There would be no more carousing and woman-chasing. He had had his fill of all of that while waiting for this special girl to grow up. She'd had her 18th birthday last week. Gray eyes flashed and white teeth gleamed in a darkly tanned face as Wade smiled in anticipation. The lovely Storm Roemer was all the woman he would ever want. When Renegade came to a halt in front of the barn, Wade slid from the saddle and led the animal into his stall. Wade stripped the saddle off the horse's broad back after removing his mail from the saddlebag. When he had removed the bridle from the black's proud head, he picked up the mail he had laid on the oat bin and walked toward the cabin. As he mounted the 2 steps to the wide porch, he wondered how long a time should elapse between an engagement and the marriage. 6 months? A month? Possibly only a week. He grinned to himself. He had waited so long to possess the long-legged, blonde-headed Storm. Storm, named so by her parents because she had been born on the night of the worst storm the county had ever known. The door slapped behind Wade as he entered the cool, dim interior of the log house. On the way to his bedroom, he tossed the papers and the mail on a cluttered table next to a rawhide-covered couch. It spread out as it landed, and he paused to peer closely at a white envelope half hidden beneath a circular. He fished it free from the others and frowned. It was addressed to him. Unease shot through him, and he was gripped with the premonition that once he read the contents of the letter his life would change forever, that all of his planning and daydreams would have been in vain. His fingers shook lightly as he tore open the envelope and withdrew 2 sheets of paper. He looked first at the last page, his eyes dropping down to see the signature of the writer, and then he groped for the chair behind him as he began to read the letter. His face grew ashen, and his fingers tightened on the pages as his eyes flew over the words. And then, as though in a daze, he dropped the letter and rose to move across the room and stare out the window. He stared without seeing at the Platte as it flowed past the cabin. He didn't hear the meadowlark singing in the small pasture behind the barn. His stomach muscles knotted, and his eyes squeezed shut as though he was in pain, and a delicate, lovely face swam before his eyes. With a deep groan, he dropped his head on his folded arms, hoarse, dry sobs racking his body. Wade stood in front of the window, thinking, until the setting sun threw a red glare on the river. He gathered up the sheets of paper and the envelope then, and laid to rest all of his wonderful plans for the future with his beautiful golden girl. He was supposed to take her to a dance tonight, to ask her to marry him. He would, instead, take another girl. Storm's pride would take care of the rest. He hoped that she would leave the big ranch a few miles from Laramie, maybe go to Cheyenne and become the school teacher she had always wanted to be. He couldn't leave the area himself. Pa depended upon him too much. His steps shuffling like those of an old man, Wade walked into his bedroom. Chapter 1. Wyoming, 1878. The hot sun beat down on the tall, rangy man leaning against the weather-beaten building housing the ticket office. A stranger, seeing him for the first time, would never guess by his garb, woolen trousers shoved into worn, scuffed boots, a faded flannel shirt, and a loosely knotted handkerchief, that he owned a 1,000-acre ranch. But the truth was that Cain Roemer ran 3,000 steers, and often had as many as 15 men working for him. As the handsome ranch owner waited for the afternoon stagecoach from Cheyenne to pull in, he let his gaze wander over the sprawling town of Laramie. It was